Sheila and Eric Eagan, welcome to the Trails Collective interview series. Thank you for doing this. I see what are you drinking, Eric?
Oh, Athletic Brewing Upside Dawn.
Oh, nice, nice. Sheila, are you partaking?
I am. I'm having an Athletic Brewing Freeway.
Oh, nice. So, I was telling my running buddy this morning about you both, and I referred to you guys as RDs, and he was like, "Oh, I thought you meant registered dietitian," and I was like, "Yeah, maybe if they were hired by a beer company, like." But that was kind of funny. So yes, you guys are sponsored by Athletic Brewing, yes? So
yeah, we work with them. They sponsor one of our races. They sponsor an event that we put on. So we do a bit of stuff social media wise with them. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So what does that entail, being sponsored by a beer company?
Well, for the races, it's not much because they're really just interested in being a part of that community. So Athletic Brewing Company is really cool because they have it's called Two for the Trails. So 2% of every sale they make, they give back to trail projects. So they sponsor many on the Genny. They supply all the drinks for that event. And then a formal that we're hosting in the fall called Mess the Dress, Filthy Formal.
And they actually came to Last Runner Standing also. So yeah. They've been really awesome to work with, and they really love the trails like we do. So it's kind of a nice partnership.
And they're local to Rochester, yeah?
No. They're out of Connecticut, and they just opened another facility in California.
Oh, okay, cool. That's neat. I hear a lot about Suckerfest beer, but it's cool to get something that's on the East Coast.
Yeah.
So, Eric and Sheila, I met you guys about 4 years ago. I think like right before the first Many on the Genny, which you were so kind to invite me to. And,
4 or 5 years ago.
What was it? What'd you say? Sorry.
Oh, just go ahead.
Oh, well, anyway, so that was when, I guess when we were talking earlier, your history began. And so, really, you guys were wonderful in inviting me out to stay at your house and try to, test the course out a little bit, because I was kind of nervous. And then, Many on the Genny, which is, a 40-mile race in Letchworth State Park, is my favorite race still. So, it's great. You guys do such a wonderful job. And Many on the Genny was supposed to happen this past weekend. Mm-hmm. And it was canceled due to what's going on right now. Right decision all around. But you both decided to do a little something on the course this past weekend. And so I really want to talk about that. And I promise audience that this is just gonna whet your palate. I'll get them both on individually eventually, but I wanted the scoop of what happened this past weekend. So, Eric, why don't you tell everybody what you've been going through for the past couple of years, and then Sheila, you can tell your perspective a little bit, and then we'll bring it back to what happened this past weekend.
Sure. Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief. It's a long history. In the last 5 years, I've had 7 surgeries. 2 complete rebuilds of both Achilles tendons, knee surgeries, all kinds of drama from the knees down. So I haven't really been able to run much more than a couple of miles for a day or two here or there over the past 5 years. And everything sort of started to clear up late last year, beginning of this year. All the surgeries were done. Everything was healing up, and we were excited to celebrate with sort of Many on the Genny, with being out there for the whole day without being in pain. I've always been in pain for the race. Marking the course has been awful. By the end of the day, my feet were usually bigger than my quads.
To be fair,
so,
I've been in pain that whole day too, so.
Yeah. So I was excited to spend a day of just enjoying the race with everybody, and then it got canceled. So we weren't able to do that this year.
So how did you get injured the first time?
It sounds like from all the doctors that I've met with, it was more of like a genetic issue with my heels, that they were causing problems to my Achilles tendons, and then combined a little bit of tight calf, and it just turned into I was getting like micro tear after micro tear, and then it was causing repetitive stress into the bone. which was kind of layering and growing. And so they had to take care of all of that at once. So they had to clean out the tendon, clean out the bone. They had to lengthen my calf. So each surgery was 6 months really before you were walking the right way again. So it was a full year of recovery for each surgery. So you couldn't have the second surgery until a year after the first surgery. So I did both legs, and then the first surgery site like failed, and I had to go back in and clean that whole thing back up again. I had it looked like a golf ball on the side of my Achilles tendon. This tendon just sort of splayed out. So it was all still connected, but it was weird. So they had to fix that. They had to clean all the junk out. So that was like another 6 months. And in the process, gained a ton of weight. I was using a scooter to get around, and I ended up putting too much pressure onto my knees, and I ended up needing to get my patella cleaned up because that, from kneeling on it for all those months, ended up damaged. And so then I ended up needing some shots in my knees. I had to get surgery on the patella tendon. So yeah, fun.
Yeah, at some point I feel like, it's like, okay, can we just like start over? Like, let's just rebuild everything.
Yeah.
Eric actually literally several times asked doctors to amputate. He's like, let's just cut it off. I'll learn how to use a prosthetic. And we were like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I'm dead serious. I'm done with all this.
I mean, I went over 4 years, probably. I didn't take a step without pain. And I had been done with the pain. It was at night, it was in the morning, it was all day. I mean, every step hurt. So I did have a few conversations with a couple of surgeons about amputating my foot and just not dealing with it anymore. So we decided not to. So hindsight now, I'm glad. At the time, I would have thought it was the right decision, but where we are now is good.
Yeah. The patience paid off, I guess. I mean, it's what we mean. Like any endurance runner, your patience are going to pay off eventually. You'll get to the finish line. It just might not be pretty. So to preface this, Eric and Sheila are RDs for Trail Methods, which put on a couple races in the Rochester area. That's how I met them, but also through another organization called Trails Rock, which they are both founding members. So Sheila, let's talk to you. How was dealing with this and helping Eric cope? Because to be honest, you guys are a unit. Like it's unbelievable how supportive you are of each other, but also how much shit you give each other. It's really it's wonderful. Like, and so it wasn't really just Eric was injured. Like you were right there too. So how has this 4-year journey been for you?
It's hard. I mean, you never want to see the person that you care about hurting or hurting. I mean, hurting physically, but also hurting emotionally. Like running is so important to Eric. And the only reason I run is because of Eric. Like, when we first met, he was like, meet me on the track. And I was like, I kind of like you. And I don't really want to get sweaty and nasty in front of you.
Literally made her chase me.
And so, not having him there to join on like adventures and runs was really hard. So it was so good. It's been so good to have him back running pain-free mostly, it's just been really good to like have that back because it was a long time of not having that. And it was frustrating. Like he was frustrated. I was frustrated. So it's good. We're in a good place now.
I remember reading something that you wrote. I'm not sure if it was on your blog or if it was somewhere on Twitter about you and your own running, because Eric not being able to run, and then I think there was a little bit of guilt, and then also just like, I still want to run and I feel bad that he can't, but I still want to. And, it's that dichotomy of like, I need to do something that's good for me and my health, but like, I don't want to rub salt in his wound, like literally his wound. And, so how did you deal with that? And then Eric, how did it feel when you were just still in pain and then you'd see Sheila go on a run?
I think, so when Eric first had all the surgeries, I had just kind of found ultra running. And I liked it. I'm much more like spend the day in the woods than go to the track, which is where he and I are very different, because he's much more like, let's go to the track for an hour and then we're done. Yeah, exactly. But so I think it was hard to be like, okay, well, I'm going to leave Saturday morning and I'm going to go on a run for 4 or 5 hours, and you're going to just be here thinking about me on this run. And like in my head, I guess a little bit, I was just like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. So I was still running, like I never stopped running. But those really long training runs and races just kind of faded away a little bit. And part of it was, I think, maybe a little bit too, that I was overtrained. Like I had done a lot and I needed a break, but then it was like hard to get back into it. You know what I mean? Like it was just hard to start doing long runs again when I knew that he couldn't be with me. And he was awesome. Like, you know, he would come in the car and crew me and drive around, and him and Picasso were like everywhere with food and drinks and snacks. So it was like not at all him. I think it was like just me in my own mind thinking about, I don't know, maybe like how I would feel. Like I would have been like, well, screw you, you're going on a run, like, you know? So
yeah, I remember that first time when I came and you showed me the many on the Genny course. I couldn't believe that like someone would just like drive around while I was running. You know, it was like I mean, I was just getting into ultra running at that point anyway, but like I was like, really? You would do that? And that was awesome. And then you were like, I think I'm done, but we still will keep going if you want to keep going. And I was like, really? This is insane. You know, it's selfless, but then also, I mean, to be fair, like I'm not running very long right now at all. So, but if somebody wanted to go do that, like my friend Amelia or something, I'd be like, yeah, I'll meet you with snacks. Why not? That sounds awesome. You know, just do what you can do. And I mean, I think Eric probably knew that, but yeah, you feel bad because like you wish he was there with you, because it's more fun when he's there, and it's, you know, and not in pain, you know, at least you're in pain together. I don't know. It's, you know, and there's nothing better than like when you're both like tired from a run together. Like that's wonderful.
Yeah. And I think some of it too, maybe like I guess I'm not a new runner anymore, but like still new-ish to the sport. And so sometimes it's like hard for me to still realize, especially with trail runners, I think like people just want to be out in the woods and they don't really care how long they're out in the woods for, or like what context they're in the woods. Like they just are excited to be out. And so I guess some of it is a little bit like putting aside your own whatever feelings about it and just being like, oh, you are cool with that? Awesome. Let's go do this thing.
Yeah. Eric, when you would see Sheila go off on these things, was it more, I mean, I bet it was pretty hard emotionally for you.
Yeah, well, and it wasn't just Sheila either, because we have all the group runs and the races we're putting on. So I've directed races with crutches and a boot. I've directed races with a scooter. I've sat in the parking lot every single Tuesday for 4 years almost and watched the group leave for a group run, and then would read a book for an hour and then see the group come back from a group run, and then we would go out to dinner. So yeah, I mean, that's the only word for it is it's frustrating. But I believe a lot in the community, and I feel better being around them than sitting on my couch, which I can't imagine sitting on my couch would have been better for me. So doing that and participating as best I could in those moments was good for me, even if it was frustrating.
Yeah, I do remember, I think last year I read the Trails Rock newsletter, and you guys were taking a step back. And was that kind of, you decided ultimately not to, which like, God save Trails Rock. Was that part of it? It was just getting a little bit like ragging on you? Yeah,
and actually, so that was really what it was. I was having a really hard time. It was starting to get really emotional at that point. It had been years of doing this and sort of kind of being a face of something that I could not participate in, and it was starting to feel almost hypocritical. And the stress was building. As soon as we decided to step away, we informed the board that we were going to step down, and we told them when. And it was like a couple of weeks I was running again. And I think maybe I was just carrying a lot of tension and stress from not being able to do all that. Plus, you know, the timing of all the surgeries finally working and the recovery finally being done. So I gave it a few more runs, and then we decided, well, let's just stick around. If I'm going to be running again, I'd like to be doing this still. So yeah, that's kind of where that went.
So before we talk about your epic adventure, I have one last question. So you are on the board of Trails Rock, but you also have your own trail running company. So why did you decide to start the Trail Methods, which I'm glad you did, it's great. But like, why didn't you just add Many on the Genny to Trails Rock?
Sure. So Trails Rock is a 501c3 nonprofit with the goal of growing and supporting the sport of trail running in the Rochester area. We have a board of directors. We have a few races. We do trail work projects. Trail Methods is a company that Sheila and I own that is technically it's for profit. I tie in some freelance writing that I do there. So sometimes I write for some of the endurance magazines or websites. So that's a way for us to get paid through there. And then when we decided we wanted to put on Many on the Genny at the time, the board, the people that were on the board of Trails Rock were pretty tapped out with how we were busy. We had 5 races. We had a 100-mile race. We were busy. And so it wasn't a thing that the board was really terribly interested in. And so we thought, gee, could we just do it, just the 2 of us, and just add it to, you know, the freelance company that we already have. And so that's what we did. We came up with the event. We put it over on its own company. So that's why they sort of fly side by side. There's a lot of crossover. I wish there wasn't, but there is a lot of crossover. Some people get confused and don't know that one's the other, or not the one, or one exists and doesn't exist. So, but that's okay. At the end of the day, it's all still trail running, and it's all still in the same area, and it's still us, I guess.
And I think there's like a Trails Rock aid station at Many on the Genny, right?
Yeah, well, traditionally some board members end up rocking an aid station for us. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really neat. Is it just you 2 that are running the company, or are there more other people?
No, it's just us. And then each year we just look for some volunteers. It's funny, this year was the first year we had like a committee of people that was, everybody sort of had a little task. And we never had to put it in motion though.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, we're just all preparing for next year. It's like we're just putting money in the bank.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, it really is my favorite race. It's like, I always feel like I always am hesitant to sign up for it because I never know like how my body's gonna feel. But then ultimately I'm like, you know, if I can walk, I need to show up, like, you know. But then like I can volunteer this year or something, or like, but I do get that free entry, so. Yeah, it's great, and everybody should sign up for it, or well, however many people you can have. It always sells out, so you know.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. It does sell out very fast. It's, you know, it's a great, it's in a great location. Letchworth is beautiful. It was voted New York State's or United States best state park, and it's accessible to a number of different cities, and the distance, while long, is accessible to someone that's looking at ultras. So if you've done a 50K, you're pretty much, you're looking at the finish line already. So for some of those newer ultra runners, it's a really cool distance. And then for people that really want to test themselves, 40 is still hard.
Yes,
so.
Especially the second half when it's full of mud.
Yes.
All right, so speaking of Many on the Genny, you guys decided to go to Letchworth State Park this past weekend. So tell us about the journey. Tell us what happened. And I just want to hear everything. I read your blog post, which I'll link to in the description of this video. But, you know, what happened and how to go.
So when we had to cancel Genny, it was really emotional for both of us, I think. Like, this is kind of like our baby, you know? And a couple of days after we canceled, Eric was like, do you think that you would want to run the race course? And I was like, yeah, because it's something that we've talked about for a long time, like running the race course. And he was like, what about on race day? And I was like 2 months from now? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, that sounds good. And then I think like a couple of weeks after that, I was like, maybe this was not a great plan. But by that point, we were committed. We had reached out to some of our friends and asked if they would crew. and pace and just keep us on track for training. So like the plan was already in motion. There was no going back. So at that point it was just like, well, this is what it's going to be. Like, we're going to train for this thing as much as we can, and then we're just going to see what happens.
We ran 13 whole miles that first week.
Oh, yeah.
It was like
I was coming from pretty much from zero,
nothing.
and we were trying to get to, the course runs a little long. It's like 42 miles, 43 miles, depending on who you talk to. But I was at zero. So yeah.
So it was a big build.
8 weeks ago. Let's just tell the audience. 8 weeks ago, Eric was running 0 miles.
Yeah.
It was a really big build, and there was no time for cutback weeks or rest weeks, like in a normal training plan. So a couple of our final long runs, Eric would just be like, "This is terrible. I feel terrible. Everything sucks." And I was like, "Oh yeah, we're training for an ultra. Like, that's kind of like, we're spot on then." And the conversation would continue like, "Oh no, like this really feels bad." And I would be like, "Well, we've been doing 40-mile weeks for 3 weeks in a row now, so."
Well, we weren't. So I knew that there was going to be struggling. You can't go from 0 to 40 miles, and I was overweight. So every other day we were hiking, because we knew that was going to be what was happening on the back half of that course anyway. So that's where a lot of the miles were coming in. So, we would run on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and the other days we would hike. And then every other day I was, doing core work and trying to get my hip flexors and all that stuff ready for what was going to happen on Saturday.
Were you ever afraid that, I know I would be paralyzed with fear that I would re-injure something? Just coming from nothing to starting.
Yeah, I had a scare. This spring I had a scare where I tripped when we were out in the woods, and I jammed my foot so bad that it felt like everything came loose again. And I had to go.
I remember that actually.
Yeah, I was back in the boot, had to get scans, everything. It was just really swollen up. So yeah, I was nervous about it, but we were very cautious. And when I say like, I didn't skip a single day of like the prehab, the PT, the core. I didn't skip a single day of that stuff. I didn't think that there was a way that I could get through it if we didn't do it right. So yeah, but yeah, there was in the back of my head that was there.
Mm-hmm. So besides the last week where you had to get stitches, no real like mishaps or anything. Like it was obviously very hard, but like basically the 8 weeks went as well as it could have, I guess.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, but it snowed for a good chunk of that. Like, it was not that long ago that it got over 90 degrees on Saturday, but it was snowing like a month ago. So a lot of the training was not done in the weather that we ran in.
I remember waking up on Sunday, and I just got done with the run, and I was like, that felt terrible. And then I like see these posts like, oh my God, Eric ran 42 miles yesterday, and Sheila did too. Like, I couldn't believe, like, my mind was like, didn't he start running like yesterday? I don't know, because you did keep it a little quiet. And
we sort of
Ron documented it though, right? So we'll get a Goat Factory media movie out of this.
Yeah, there's going to be a preview that Ron's sending over to Ian tonight.
Oh, great. Oh, excellent. So it'll be in the news show. I will try to get this out as soon as I can. I'm not going to wait till Friday. That'll be awesome. So take me through race day. You said it started at 2:30 in the morning?
Yeah. We woke up at, yeah.
Yeah, normally we would be up then because we have race stuff to get ready anyway. So normally we would sleep down at the finish line and be ready to take that shuttle over to the start. But we got up at 2:30 to drive down instead, which was weird. We're down at the start line, and it was just us and a very small crew. It was humid, like thick humidity, but a perfect sunrise, like pink sky. Sun came right up over the gorge. It was a perfect start.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, and so we broke the course up. There's 5 aid stations. So from the start to the first aid station, we ran just the 2 of us. And then at each of the different aid stations, we picked up a different person that was important to to the race over the years to run with us. So they ran segments with us. And then the last section, we did just 2 of us again.
Okay, so let's go. Let's get the details. So like the first half is at least, well, it's a little bit more, I think I don't want to say easier than the second, but you know, it's runnable a lot. Well, actually the whole course is runnable, but there's less gullies. There's less like chance that it might be like muddy or gross. So how did everything go? Just like take us through.
On the first half?
Yeah.
Sure, the whole thing, like let's start.
Yeah. Well, I think the first half went really well, which we had kind of planned on. Like when we were training, every time that a long training run was tough, it was like, wow, this is like going to be the back half of the course. Like it's going to be tough. It's going to suck. We're going to do a lot of hiking, and that's fine. So like that's what we're training for right now. So the first half went, I think it went really well. You know, the first section we ran really well. And felt good, like both of us felt great. The second section, we had to do some bushwhacking because Eric cut his leg off doing trail work to clear the trail.
The course drops down 500 feet into the Genesee River Gorge. And it's a really cool section because you don't feel like you're in New York State anymore. But the Parks Department rarely gets to maintain that trail because it floods up. The dam is a flood control, so they fill that zone sometimes to control flooding. So the trails grow like crazy down there. So the week before, we decided we were going to go down and clear the trail, and we were. And then I tripped and sliced my leg open with the gas head trimmers we were using to clear the trail with. And I had to go get 11 stitches on Sunday before the race. So majority of that trail didn't get cleared. So we had to bushwhack it.
But it was fine. It was great. And I would say aid 1 to aid 2 was pretty good. Like, I think we both felt good. I don't know. And then. Yeah,
you're up on top of the gorge for most of it.
Right.
And you could feel these like heat gusts coming out of the gorge. And they were like, you could see like the turkey vultures were like rising up with this wind. And it was just hot wind. It was like, you could tell it was like the sun was heating the gorge and then just pushing it out. It was crazy.
Yeah. So in the first half, there is that like pretty substantial climb. And I know you talked about like a 37-minute mile. Was that there or was that on the second half?
No.
Oh, no.
The first half went really well. Yeah. I mean, we ran smooth. We walked that whole climb. There was no reason to run it. But yeah, no, the first half went really well. We were on pace for a pretty good time. But I knew that things were going to fall apart on the back half. So it was like, just do what you want. I mean, the longest run we had in training was 20 miles, and we did it once.
And we didn't do anything the following day.
Yeah.
Well, we walked the following day, but like there were no back-to-back long runs or like nothing that you would do in a traditional ultra training plan.
But yeah, so we crossed the river at the halfway point. There's a couple of big climbs on the back half, and things went really well, through marathon. We hit mile 28, and it was like as soon as my watch clicked over, it was like everything seized up. I had hamstrings both cramped at exactly the same time, so I couldn't like balance on one or the other leg. It was like horrible. And then when I was trying to fix that, my calf cramped. And so I was like, oh my God. And then my foot cramped. So it was like, went right down my leg, like everything all at once. And I couldn't shake it loose. And it just kept like firing. It was like you put one of those TENS units on when it's on too strong.
Yeah.
So it was like all different spots on my leg, just all at different times. And it was like just hanging on, trying to like not fall over.
Your poles at that point.
Yeah, I mean, and I had been drinking plenty of fluids. It wasn't a nutrition issue. It just, I was sweating a lot, and I just hadn't done that many miles, and my body was like, so yeah, that mile 28 took 37 minutes. There was a hill. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to get up it. I mean, it was like, I was going like 6 inches at a time. It was embarrassing. I was like, this is ridiculous. You know, I was like, what are we? I had 4 people with us at that point, Sheila and some friends, and I was like, this is embarrassing. I'm like, what do you mean I can't climb this hill? I was like literally stuck in the middle of this hill. And I just had to fight through it. The cramps never went away from mile 28 through the finish. It just kept happening. It would almost make me fall when it happened. But so we really had to resort to more walking than we planned on. But we were going to finish.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely speaks to like physiology and science. Like, I mean, you're mentally strong, so you're going to finish, but like sometimes your body is just like, I should not be like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, it hasn't done it in so long. It's just like, I don't know what I'm doing. And it was trying to freaking out.
Yeah.
But you did get through it though. So, you know, I mean, you finished 42 miles. How long?
It was just a little over 13 hours. So the course cutoff, the course cutoff is 14. So we came through the first half at like 4 hours and 50 minutes or something like that. So I thought I thought we would finish it around 11. 12 would have been a good goal, and then all that it just gone. As soon as that 37-minute mile happened, I mean, that's almost an hour. Like, so.
All right, it's now time for the back half of the ultra, party in the back. It's now time.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. Well, and I think that kind of speaks to like ultras is like you can have goals, but also you just have to be ready for like whatever comes your way, you know? And so it's not a bad thing to have goals, but also I think it's probably wise to also just say, if I finish, and that's awesome because it's a lot of miles.
There's a lot of people come to us and they say they don't think they can run the race. Mm-hmm. And we swear up and down at them that they can and they will finish the race. And so like there was a bit of that where like, how could I say to all these people over the years that you can do this and then quit? Like, so that was in the back of my head that like, that wasn't going to be an option just because I had some cramps or just because I was tired or my foot was sore. Like, I wasn't hurt. I wasn't injured. I was just dealing with things that you deal with when you run a long distance. And so that message of like, you can do this was kind of there for me in that moment because I don't get to say that message to people if I don't live that message. So it was an opportunity to try to live it. So it hurt, but we did.
And, I mean, Sheila, you also ran 42 miles and you haven't run an ultra in a couple of years, right? So what was your back half like? Did you, how did it go for you?
I mean, I didn't deal with the cramping or like the pain that Eric was in, but it was not comfortable. And I was really thankful for all of our pacers and crew people because I did not have to worry about Eric. Like other people were worrying, not that I like completely ditched him or anything, but like, you know, one of our friends, James, was like really good about making sure Eric was eating still. So I would be like, hey, I think you need to eat something. And he'd be like, I'm fine. And 2 minutes later, James would, I don't know where he kept getting these bags of potato chips, but he would like pull a bag of potato chips out of nowhere, seemingly, and hand it to Eric and be like, here, buddy, you need to eat this. And Eric would just do it. And I'm like, I just said that. Like, literally, I just said that.
You're sleeping on the couch tonight.
And then like our friend Scott was really good going up hills, you know, because we let Eric go out front to set the pace. And if he was having a hard time, Scott would just like get in front of him and be like, you got this, buddy. Let's just go to the next tree. And then we get to the next tree and he'd be like, all right, now we're going to go to the next tree. And it was just good that I didn't have to think about all of those things too. Do you know what I mean? Because especially the last probably 10 miles for me were not comfortable at all either. Like I was also hurting, maybe not as much, but I did not feel good. So it was, I guess, good that I could just focus on myself, if that makes sense. It sounds really selfish, but like I could just think about what I needed to do to get through, and I knew everybody else was taking care of him. So we're really lucky. Like we have a lot of really awesome friends, and it just like the trail running community and the ultra running community are so special. Like, I mean, who gives up an entire Saturday to just drive around and make sure that we're fed and
for two people?
Yeah, fed and watered. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy, but people did it, and
our people do, our family does. So, and we're lucky, we really are.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So, but yeah, so the back half was interesting, but
hard.
Yeah, it was very hard. But the last section was like, hell yeah, like, we're back.
The final countdown.
Final countdown.
Every time I hear that song, like I just get a huge grin because like I remember exactly like where I am. I know, like I get in that mindset, like I can see it in my brain. I can see the watermelon that I'm about to eat, and then I just know it's a couple miles to the finish.
Yeah, and we this year, so we didn't know that they were coming down, but when there's like a big climb to get up to the final countdown, and so the minute we hit it, I was like, oh, we're close. And then you get to the top of the climb and the music started, and I was like, oh, I wonder which one of our friends is playing the music. And then like Eric was in front, and then we had a couple people, and then me, and I just heard Eric say, oh my God, are you guys kidding me? And I'm like, kidding about what? And then I got up a little further, and Rochester Running Company is who does that aid station for us, and they were there with like the tent, the whole setup. Like they were the ones playing the music, they had the tent, Greg and Kaylee were there. It was crazy. I was like, don't cry, people are filming you.
I cry every time I run into that aid station. I don't know, it's great.
Yeah, well, and it's like when you get there, then you're like, all right, I got this now.
So how did it feel to cross the finish line?
It was good. I mean, it was good. I was ready to be done. It threatened to rain all day. It was so hot and humid. It finally rained just as we were finishing.
Yeah, I saw those photos. They were really cool.
Well, that actually felt good. But yeah, it was time for me to be done. The cramps didn't stop though. I mean, I spent the rest of the night. I don't know how much water I drank, like 80 ounces of water, trying to chase these cramps out. But all night long, like, so like think about like when you get that cramp in the bottom of your foot when you're sleeping, and you're like, oh man, you shoot up. And so like I would shoot up because my foot cramped, but then like my hamstring or my hip would cramp, and then it's like, oh shoot, go back down. It's
Yeah.
like, so my foot would hurt, and it was like that was going on until about 8 o'clock the next morning. I was like, this has to stop. But it was fun. Our friend Joe, who's been come to the race every year and helped out the finish line, he baked food for the crew. Athletic Brewing Company provided drinks for them. And actually, Joe made medals for us. We always have handmade our medals. So Joe made some with, we had a logo made for this event, so it was different from many in the Genny. So he had those made up. He made those himself for us. So that was really cool too.
Yeah. No, I definitely know what you mean about the cramps after, because normally the reason I leave the Many on the Genny after party is because like I need to drive home and my legs are going to seize when I'm in the car, and then I'm going to get in an accident. And that has almost happened. So I'm like, I have to go, sorry. And then, yeah, that whole night, I'm just like, my legs are just seizing. Like, yeah, so totally understand. It's the worst. But the best too, because you're like, I just did that.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I'm like, something is wrong with all of us because we're like, oh, it hurts, but it's so great.
Yes.
No, it's not great, but it is.
Yes. So now that you've run the whole course at once, sparkling water next year? Yes. No.
Listen, I'm kind of a minimalist when it comes to this stuff. I'm not a huge fan of like the big race day productions. I like a kind of grassroots feel. We don't provide a watermelon in our races, so if you get watermelon, it's because somebody likes to bring that out. We got by with like very little. Some gummy bears, some potato chips, some fruit roll-ups, and some water. Like a cooler that you can carry over your shoulder is what had everything we had for the whole day.
Mm-hmm.
So no, we won't be adding anything to our aid stations at Many on the Genny.
I'm kidding. I put it in my drop bags.
Just in case, right?
Yep.
Yes. Half the time I don't drink it, but just to know if I need it, my little elixir.
Yeah, all the aid stations tend to do something unique anyway. So like one aid station has like beer and bacon, and one aid station has watermelon. But we let runners know exactly what we supply, which is more than enough. We supply quite a bit. But yeah, so those days, they're still going to be fun, unique things. It just doesn't come from us.
Yeah.
And we proved you don't need it.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Well,
Well,
we're
I am so like proud and just so thankful you were able to do this. And I mean, I'm glad that like you didn't tell me. Like I'm really glad, because then when I woke up, I was like, holy shit, it was crazy. Like it was awesome. And I can't wait to see the film. And I thank you so much for being so flexible and getting on this call with me so fast. I will get this out as quick as I can, but I do work full time now, so we'll see. And I can't wait to see everything. And thank you so much, you guys. This is great. And I'll get you both on separately in the coming weeks.
All right.
Well, thanks for having us. It was good to see you.
Yeah. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you, you too. See ya.